Okay, and we are live. ¿Qué tal, amigos? I hope everybody is well today. Another live stream coming in from Madrid, Spain, capital of this country still. Now, we're going to go through some of the main stories that have caught my attention today, not only here in the local Spanish press, but also an international story today that caught my attention because it's a very strange story, and we'll have a look at that one as we go through. We'll also have a look at some of the comments that were left on previous videos. Now, first piece of news today. This one here, Spain, France, Portugal agreed to abandon MidCat and replace it with a green energy corridor between Marseille and Barcelona. After many months of disagreements, bickering and tug of war, the governments of Spain, France and Portugal reached a preliminary agreement on Thursday to multiply the energy connections between the Iberian Peninsula and the rest of the continent. The pact represents a significant change with respect to the plan that the South was demanding from Paris, as it contemplates the abandonment of the MidCat project and its replacement by a green energy corridor to link the peninsula to the European market. We have proposed the Barcelona-Marseille alternative, a pipeline for hydrogen and for the transition of the gas that is needed, explained President Pedro Sánchez at the end of the three-way meeting held in Brussels. So basically, Spain, Portugal caving into French demands. We saw that France didn't want this pipeline to happen, the MidCat, which was going to take gas from Portugal and Spain through France into Germany. The French weren't too happy about that plan, so they have negotiated with the Spanish and the Portuguese and have come up with a different plan, as we saw there, to, move some type of green energy corridor between Marseille in the south of France and Barcelona. So there we go. Compromise has been met by the three governments. And no surprises, because as we know, France, a big wig in the European Union, and obviously convincing Mr. Sánchez and Mr. Costa, the Portuguese Prime Minister, that their idea is the best idea. So there we go. We see the next piece of news, which is also related to gas, because apparently gas prices are falling so much in Spain because it's coming out of our ears, somebody is quoted as saying. After a 12-day crossing of the Atlantic, La Mancha Knutson arrived in Cartagena early Wednesday morning. The Spanish-flagged LNG carrier was loaded with liquefied gas from a port in Texas. It was luckier than the NFE Grand, which departed the same day from the Gulf of Mexico. Destination? He doesn't know. It's for orders. That's his way of saying he's waiting for the highest bidder so that he can set a course. There we go. A dozen of these methane tankers are waiting at anchor off the coast of Cadiz. All of them are also for orders. The cost of keeping the ship operating at sea each day is around 80,000 euros. Suddenly we find ourselves in a situation where the gas is coming out of our ears, comments one expert. So there we go. That is what is being written about in the press here in Spain. Gas prices falling and gas apparently coming out of our ears because there's nowhere left to put it. And these tankers are lining up down there in the Gulf of Cadiz, or off the coast of Cadiz, waiting for orders, as they say here, for the highest bidder to see where that gas goes, I think. So interesting. We've gone from energy crisis where gas prices were very high to articles like that one there where gas prices are falling. So good news? I don't know. We'll wait and see. We will wait and see. All right, now let's have a look at the next piece of news. This one here. The UME, the Unidad Militar de Emergencia, an army emergency unit, takes over Chipiona in Cadiz to prepare for a possible tsunami. Chipiona, Cadiz, has taken a step towards protecting its population from the possibility of a tsunami, and the 2nd Emergency Intervention Battalion of the UME is today carrying out flood training exercises. UNESCO warned in July of a high probability of a tsunami off the Mediterranean coast, with waves that could reach more than a metre high and 700 metres deep, with catastrophic consequences. Cadiz was one of the 40 areas in 21 different countries to be alerted, which is why the Tsunami Ready initiative was concerned about the lack of awareness and sensitization of the population, trying to get that word out there. So there we go. Chipiona down there in Cadiz preparing for a possible tsunami because UNESCO warned of a high probability of one in 21 different countries that were alerted. First I've heard about this, but good to see that the army is on the case down there in Cadiz preparing the local population for a possible tsunami. And I think there has been one in the past down in Cadiz, I think a few centuries ago maybe. I can't remember exactly when, but I think Cadiz did experience a tsunami back in the day. But if anybody has more accurate information, please let us know in the chat section. So if you're in that part of the world and you are getting tsunami training, let us know. Chipiona, a popular holiday resort down there in Cadiz. Now, the next article we'll look at today is this one here. Let's have a look quickly. Strange article that I saw in an online publication. 7 Spanish foods that no one eats. Spanish there in quotation marks. There are usually 2 causes for the misconceptions when it comes to Spanish food. The first is that dishes that are regional, and Spain is nothing if not a regional nation, instead of being widespread. The second is that many foods that originated in the Americas but happen to have Spanish-sounding names are thought to be from Spain. Here are 7 foods almost never eaten by Spaniards, even though some of them did indeed originate in that nation. Plus, don't miss 6 Mexican dishes no one eats in Mexico, which we're not going to have a look at for obvious reasons. Now, I saw this article, as we can see here, 7 Spanish foods no one eats in Spain. Now, some of them, obviously, they're Spanish-sounding names, but they come from Mexico or Peru or one of those South American or Central American countries. And here in Spain, people do eat these foods if you go to a Peruvian restaurant or if you go to a Mexican restaurant. Or at home, you might eat these foods as well because you can buy them in the supermarkets. But there were a couple of things that caught my attention. For example, tortillas. Tortillas in Spain, as we know, are not the same as in Mexico. So the Spanish do eat tortillas. There should be a T there. And quite often, in fact. But the Spanish tortilla is an egg, potato, and onion omelette, not a flat disc of flour or corn. So obviously they're referring to the little Mexican tortillas, which, as we know, if you want to make a taco or something like that, you use those little tortillas. But of course, that's the difference. In here, tortilla means an omelette, Spanish omelette or a French omelette or any type of omelette. It can be made with eggs and not the little flour variety. Paella. Now, this one caught my attention. Paella is eaten in Spain, according to this, but it is only common in parts of Spain. It is hardly ubiquitous. It's hardly a ubiquitous national dish. Now, I don't know whether this is true or not. Of course, paella originates in Valencia, but you can find paella all over the country and people cooking paella all over the country. For example, in Galicia, I'm sure on a Sunday, people would sit down and sometimes have a paella or a rice dish, let's say. Maybe not necessarily a paella. But I disagree with this that it's only common in parts of Spain. I think it's fairly widespread paella or rice dishes with saffron seasoning, which make them yellow. So you're going to come across quite a lot of yellow rice dishes. Some people call them paella, some people call them rice dishes, but true paella is only traditional Valencian dish, but you can find it in other parts of the country. For example, where I had lunch today, on the menu, paella. Was it an authentic Valencian paella? No. Was it a yellow rice dish? Yes. Do they call it paella? Yes. So there we go. The next one, tapas. Apparently no one eats tapas in Spain. Tapas is a type of dish, not, contrary to common misconception, according to Spanish Sabores, a food in and of itself. Yeah, well, tapas is a type of dish, but the concept of tapas is, obviously, it's not a food, okay? It's a concept of food where you go to a bar and you order a drink and they give you a tapa. That's the idea. So if people think that tapa is a type of food, obviously they are mistaken, but it is quite common to go out for dinner and have tapas or raciones or things like that. If you go to Granada, when you have a drink, they give you tapas to eat with your meal. But it isn't, obviously, a type of dish. Sangria. Now, this one always catches my attention because sangria in Spain, yeah, you see it in the centre of Madrid. You see it in the centre of Barcelona. In Spain, sangria is served primarily to tourists, though it is sometimes served at parties or festivals. True, but that's right. You don't normally drink sangria at home, unless, of course, it is a party and you're looking for a drink that's going to, that's going to keep a lot of people satisfied, because you make a big jug of it with red wine and casera, or whatever you put into the sangria, fruit, sugar, whatever you put in. I don't know, I've never really drunk sangria, but a little bit of vodka, a little bit of gin, if you like, as well. And if you've got a party in the middle of summer, you might make a couple of jugs of sangria. But they're right there. It's mainly a tourist drink. You go into the centre of Madrid to the tourist bars. They always have a jar of sangria sitting on the counter with a wooden spoon in it. And they shake it up, they stir it up when a tourist comes in, and it's the first thing people see. It's normally the first thing people offer. But I would agree with that one, that not necessarily a drink here in Spain, sangria. The next ones. Tacos and burritos. Tacos and burritos. Well, obviously, they're from Mexico, as we know, or rather a pre-Mexican food, if you will. According to Twist Taco, they were being eaten in Mesoamerica long before the Spanish arrived. But again, here in Spain, if you go to a Mexican restaurant, you can eat tacos and burritos here at home. My son loves them. I make them here. So you can buy them here, but of course, not a Spanish dish. Ceviche. From Peru, the so-called birthplace of ceviche, the citrus and citric acid-cooked shrimp dish suddenly popular all across America is debated. But one thing is for sure, it's South American, not Spanish. Very true. If you go to a Peruvian restaurant, you're going to eat ceviche. Sometimes at the local restaurants now, they put it on the menu because it's trendy. It's all of a sudden it's become trendy. But it doesn't have its origins here in Spain. Don't know where it has its origins, to be honest. I think there's probably some type of mix between raw fish culture, wherever that came from, maybe Asia, maybe Japan, mixing it there with South America, and I think it comes from Peru originally. And the last one, jalapenos. Obviously, here in Spain, we don't eat those. But it is funny that Yahoo needs to publish an article like this, 7 Spanish foods that no one eats in Spain. And the name, of course, when people see the name taco or burrito, they think that it might have originated here in Spain, but that is not the case. Because a lot of Spanish food hasn't traveled to the Americas. For example, countries like Mexico with those tacos, burritos, the tortillas that they have there, predating the Spanish arrival. That's why they have those customs there. And of course, jalapenos, I imagine, are grown primarily in countries like Mexico. There we go. Now let's have a look at the first comment today. This one here from Kevin. The fuel rebate ended several weeks ago here in Granada. Now, I didn't know, Kevin, that Granada was an independent part of Spain, because the fuel subsidy or the fuel rebate is nationwide and it doesn't finish until December, okay? So it hasn't finished. It hasn't finished in Granada. It hasn't finished in Malaga. It hasn't finished in Madrid. It hasn't finished in the Canary Islands. It is still in place until, as I said, December. Maybe that you had your own autonomous community rebate. Maybe that was the case. I think I read something about Mr. Moreno down there in Andalusia putting his own fuel rebate on the table for consumers. That might have come to an end. But the national one, no. So thank you very much for your comment, but it hasn't come to an end in Granada. That is, unless Granada has suddenly become independent over the last week or so. I don't think that is the case. All right, another comment. Let's put it up on the screen. Chris, who's in the chat section as well. Yup, Singapore-style punishments for graffiti artists. It's the only way to put an end to a monstrous eyesore. Yeah, Singapore, as we know, they went the hard road with people that painted graffiti, people that ate chewing gum. So they really went the hard line with their corporal punishment, which I think was what they used. If you got caught putting graffiti on the walls, you would get the stick. So fairly strict there. And I asked the question yesterday whether we need to go down the Singapore path or not here in Spain, because graffiti is a serious problem. And when I see people's homes getting graffiti on the walls, which happened to my neighbour here, happened to a guy across the street as well. So it's happened to 2 or 3 neighbours here. People just walk past with a can of spray paint and paint some rubbish on people's walls. All of the public areas have been painted. They did some nice murals up at the fairground here. Somebody went over and graffitied all of the murals. So it's a real problem, and the punishment's just not hard enough. But again, whether we need to go down the Singapore line, I don't know. Or maybe, as another person suggested, somebody should just catch these people and make them clean it off. That could be the solution to the problem. I don't know. Anyway, we'll see. All right, good. Now we'll have a look at another comment here because we're running out of time. Here we go. This one from Shanaz. I heard the authorities in Holland put the graffiti painters to work. They must buy their own cleaning materials and remove it all their paintwork. Nice idea. I bet it would put many off. So that's where I got that idea from Shanaz's comment there. So that could be the solution. Maybe it's a less aggressive solution, getting them to clean their graffiti. But as I said yesterday, the graffiti artists here, I mean, everybody knows who they are. The tags are all the same. Monke, a few other people as well. So can we find these people? Because they're all over the city. It doesn't matter whether you're in the north, the south, the east, the west of Madrid. You see the same tags all over the city on every bridge, every wall, every public infrastructure has ugly graffiti, and it is a serious problem. So I'll say goodbye. I hope everybody has a fantastic rest of your Thursday. Until Sunday, hasta luego, hasta entonces.